So my name's Gerald Pentecost. I'm a CPA from here in Gadsden. My office is over on Rainbow Drive. You might have seen it. I just moved there and I put a giant neon sign out there. I didn't really mean for it to turn out that way, but it sure jumps out at you. So that's what I just moved into Gadsden. I was actually in Rainbow City before, and it's been great so far. It's a little more expensive, but it's been good so far. I kind of am a general practitioner. You have to be in a smaller town. So we do taxes. I've got 4 folks that work for me. I feel like I'm a teacher and a coach more than anything, because I'm always trying to show somebody how to do something or this or that. So we do all the traditional stuff, audits and taxes and bookkeeping, all that kind of stuff. And I dabble in some financial coaching and things like that. So it's kind of a new service. We're growing fast. I think our CPA numbers are shrinking fast, and that's why I'm telling these two, and maybe you too, to become a CPA, because there certainly is a need for it, and it's always been very good to me. I can tell you that. So I'm not a great public speaker. I thought about being a comedian. I went over to that Tuck's Hookah Lounge to see if I could go to comedy night, and they tossed me out, and they got Bunchy Bernard instead, you know. So I'm not a great public speaker. I like the fact that this is a round table format, so it is kind of round, but you know, please fire back at me so we can make this last a little bit longer. We're going to talk a little bit about what I'm sure you're here to hear, which is taxes, and it's coming up, year end's coming up fast. So I got a few points on ideas for saving taxes. Now I heard you say you're a nonprofit, so you may not have to worry about this. And I do a lot of nonprofit work, but is your year end December 31st?
No, our year end is already passed.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, it's too late for you. But not that you have to worry about taxes, but there's a lot to worry about in nonprofit, let me tell you. You know, how many people in here have taken a look at their income and expenses up to date, just to see where you're at, you know? We do that a lot. CPAs, we stay on the phone one person after another. Where are you at? How you doing? What can we do? You know, and all that kind of stuff. So that's certainly something you need to do if you're a business. You know, if you're a cash basis taxpayer, we always tell you to look for opportunities to defer that income on back, you know, maybe hold some deposits and make them on January 1st and things like that. You know, if you can go ahead and write checks for expenses, even if you don't put them in the mail for a couple of weeks, that works too. So that's something we always talk about. You know, one of the biggest things that I always hear is, you know, can we buy something before year end? Because I'd rather buy something than give it to the government. So, you know, I always say, yeah, I need 2 reasons. You need to have 2 reasons to do something like that. We don't just spend money to save taxes, because it's never dollar for dollar. But, you know, if you're planning on buying something, a piece of equipment or office furniture or whatever, before, you know, in the next 6 months or so, go ahead and do it now. Even if you have to borrow to do it, that still counts. It's when you put it in service is when you get that deduction. So we talk about that a lot. Meals are still 100% deductible in 22. I really thought entertainment would come back online, but it did not. That's thanks to Mr. Trump, who changed that. I'm not really sure. He's in the entertainment industry in a large degree, but for some reason his tax bill disallows entertainment expenses. So that's not back yet, maybe soon. You know, energy credits are still out there. If you add things or improve your buildings or anything like that, those are still out there. Make sure and save those receipts. And, you know, windows and doors are almost all energy efficient these days, so that may be a credit. Don't forget about the employee retention credit. You can still file for that all the way up through April 15th of 24. That's big money for people that have employees. And we don't do those, we don't process those in-house. We don't have the software capability, but we have a partner that works with us on that. And let me tell you, I've seen some big money on that. You know, even people that just have a few employees, that can be a sizable amount. And that's kind of a carryover from the pandemic, you know, relief stuff. So don't forget about that. If you plan on giving to charity, once again, don't do it unless you have 2 reasons. But, you know, go ahead and do it in December. And of course, I love the retirement plan. Set a retirement plan up and contribute to that. That's a triple, I call it a triple whammy because you get a deduction, you get to build all your income in it tax-free, and then whenever you actually do get it out, it's usually a lower tax bracket. So that's why I call it a triple whammy. And then, if you have a business return and it's December 31st, you might just want to put that on extension so you can coordinate and make sure you're getting the most benefit out of your business that you can. Coordinate that with the individual owner returns, and that's something that we do often, even if we have to put it on extension. Questions? That's a quick tax thing. Not much has changed this year.
It's not really a question, but for these ladies, really quick, simple, can you tell the difference between a cash basis and accrual basis?
So yes, that would be good to know. See, that's the accountant in me. Cash basis basically means you pay taxes on income when you get it, and you get to deduct expenses when you pay them. That's as simple. And they're like, well, Gerald, isn't that the way all people are? Well, no. Accrual basis means you have to go ahead and recognize income that you haven't been paid for yet. So in other words, if you do some work, send a bill that's dated December 31st, and they don't pay it until January 31st, you still have to recognize that in December. So that's accrual basis. We steer people towards, usually if you have a small amount of, let's take a restaurant, for example. You're going to want them to be on an accrual basis because they're not waiting for money to come in. They're taking it in when they provide the meals. But you get to deduct the expenses even if you haven't paid them. So your power bill from December is deductible even if you didn't pay it till January the 10th. So accrual is more of a real, situation, and cash basis just depends on what's actually coming in and out of your bank account. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's pros and cons to both of those, and being able to really budget and manage kind of depends. Do you have what's the parameters on changing from year to year?
Almost impossible.
You kind of establish that, you need to stick.
You have to establish it when you open your business. That's why it's such an important decision when you start a business, because you can change, but you have to go through a formal process with the IRS, and they're not likely to allow it unless it benefits them. And we don't want that.
Most businesses are cash basis because they didn't know any better mostly, right?
That's kind of the default, yeah. That's kind of the default. So, whenever we have a new business come in, or somebody that's going to start a business, we always talk about that a lot. What's your deal? I've got a giant IT company. They do millions of dollars in sales, and they're cash basis because their expenses are it's easier for them to plan at a year-end cutoff with cash basis. It just depends on the business. Some people are better with accrual, some better with cash. Now, the IRS prefers accrual, obviously, but the Trump bill, once again, made it to where if you have under 25 million in sales, you can do whatever you want. You don't even have to keep inventory. You don't even have to put inventory out there. You can just write it all off. So, most small businesses can do cash basis if they want to. That was no fun. Cash versus accrual. Accrual, that word, I hate that word, but that's what, I didn't get to pick it. They should have made it more fun than that. All right, so, let me see, how do I do?
Just tap the screen and then do it.
Tap the screen.
And then press
There we
play.
go.
Yeah.
All right, so that being said, there's 3 buckets. We talk about tax stuff. There's 3 buckets of people in the tax business. The ones that 80% of us, I would throw myself in that from time to time, wait until they file the return. They're like, oh no, what can I do? But they've already filed their return and they know what they owe. Oh no, I got to do something. That's 80% of people. The other 20% are thinking about 2022 right now. And that's pretty small. You still have time to do some things. But here's a crazy idea. What if you were planning for 2023 right now? That is the guy that, or lady that you want to listen to right there. What if you were planning for 2023's taxes right now? And other things, you know, this is actually a much better time to be planning for next year. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm going to focus this. Please look, CPAs are expensive, and I'm here, free service, you know. Let me have your questions. If you need to know something, please interrupt me, and we'll try to do our best to answer it. So, what are we looking at here in 2022? Well, you probably got your financial statements. A balance sheet is a snapshot of your business assets and liabilities, where you stand today. I've got this cash, I've got this equipment, I owe this, etc. Profit and loss statement shows your income and expenses and what profit you made during the year. So you may be looking at that here at November 30th maybe, so you can kind of look at the end of the year. Cash flow statements are more common in nonprofits, I've noticed, than in for-profits, but cash flow kind of tells you where your cash went. Sometimes I'll have a client that'll say, well, why am I having to pay these taxes? I don't have any money in my bank. And so I'll just do a quick cash flow statement to show them where they spent it. And most of the time, they paid it out to themselves. And you can't deduct that. That's income. So, you know, cash flow statements sometimes can be handy. Trending analysis, where we kind of look at the months and see where we're going, see kind of what's happened. You know, maybe you can identify some relationships between the numbers. And then, you know, budget to actual reports, you know, if you were smart and you went ahead and set a budget, like I'm sure the nonprofit people do, you know, then you can sit back and look at, so where we missed the mark? You know, where did we do better? You know, but you know, the sad truth of the matter is, now we're looking at, well, what can we do now? You can look at these last minute tax planning opportunities, like I said. You can set and analyze your operations data and try to determine, you know, what happened. You know, hey, we raised our prices back in February. What happened? Did our customers leave? Or is there a percentage of our customers that left? Things like that. Of course, you're providing your information out to all your bankers and your shareholders and in your case, your board of directors or whatever. And, you know, then are you just reviewing the year end with pride? Maybe. But, you know, I find in most cases that people are surprised by the numbers. I get really shocked by some of the stuff I hear. I had a guy call me one day, he says, I'm losing money like crazy. And I looked at his financials and I said, well, you know, how many employees do you? He was a mobile repair service, right? So he's got 4 technicians that go around and repair things. And I looked at the amount that they billed for, like, over several months, you know. So they're billing, you know, they have a rate, so their rate's like $75 an hour for service. And the revenue is like hitting $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month. That's a pretty easy calculation if you think about it. Just divide the total by $75, and that's the number of hours that they bill to a customer, right? Well, you know, one person could bill $6,000 in a month. Why do you have 4? You know, and it's just like this business owner's like looking at me cross-eyed like, I don't know. Look, I'm guilty of this stuff too. Everybody is. All I'm trying to say is maybe we could be a little, you know, just kind of take a little time to look at some of this stuff. You know, what's going on here? Why do I have 4 employees? As it turns out, they were sitting back there in the shop, goofing off 20 hours a week, you know, chatting and looking at Facebook and all that kind of stuff. You know, and numbers can tell you things like that, you know. So, you know, that's why I say, you know, let's, you know, analyze that operations data. It's something that you could be doing right now at the end of the year that may actually help improve your business in the long run. So, you know, of course, you can eat and drink more at this time of the year. I mean, it is the holidays, right? And we all like to put on like 20 pounds, you know, during the holidays. So why not? I mean, you know, that may be all you can do. I'm going through these slides fast. the truth is, it's probably too late. Did we, at this point, if we just now starting to think about it, did we accomplish what we wanted to do? Did we use our resources right? Did we make profit? You know, was our pricing right? At the end of the day, it goes something like this. Why do you have a business in the first place? I mean, you know, you can say, well, I'm very passionate about what I do. I like to help people. That's great, I do. That's why I became a CPA. My parents had a CPA when I was a teenager, and I could see even at that age that he made a significant impact on their lives. So, you know, sure, I'm very passionate about it, and I like to help people, but the truth of the matter is, if you ain't in it to make big money, you know, money is the blood that flows through the veins of your business. So, and profit. So, I mean, you know, that's the thing is I've noticed, and I'm guilty of this. I'm not judging nobody. But, you know, that's the sad fact of the matter is it's amazing how fast time goes by. All of a sudden, you're sitting, you know, in your car after your 5th year in business, and tax season just ended, and you're looking at your bank account and you're like, something's wrong. You know, I just worked 14 hours a day and there's nothing to show for it. And that time flies by. It flies by. So, you know, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see more people being a little bit, you know, looking ahead. And that's why, rather than trying to shuffle around and do everything you can at the last minute, look ahead, you know. So were we under overstaffed? That's the, you know, that was the point of that repair tech company. So, you know, that's a good question. All of these are great questions. Maybe next year. Can we be a little more deliberate going forward? Can we like sit down and plan and make sure that our business does what we want it to do? What do I want this business to do in 23, 24, 25? Maybe I need to go see somebody about when I want to retire, you know, who's going to take this business over? You know, what do I want this business to do? What's my goal? You know, you can either make that happen or you can wake up 5 years later and you're still at square one. And that is a real thing. That really happens. I mean, you know, the nonprofit library, I mean, you know, it's the same concept. I mean, you know, nonprofits are usually a lot more deliberate. They do budgets and they look ahead and they have goals, and, you know, their goals may not be profit, but it's a similar thing. I work in the nonprofit area a lot, and I've noticed that nonprofit boards and nonprofit executives and employees actually do this. They go through this, you know. So maybe we can learn a lesson from them, you know, in business, because, I mean, you know, some of the concepts are the same. What resources do I have? What do I need? You know, how, you know, what's going to happen? I mean, you know, I'll tell you what's happening in my industry. Everybody's going away. I mean, you know, these CPAs are retiring. We lost a couple of big CPAs in my practice area passed away, and you know, another firm sold out to a bigger firm, and they didn't want to serve small clients anymore. And I mean, you know, it's just turbulent. I mean, you know, what resources do I have? What do I need? You know, what do I need? What's going to happen? And how do I get there? How do I make this business go where I want it to go 23 and forward? You know, that's kind of what we need to be thinking about right now in December. So here's what we do. It's called a strategic plan. Now that's a really boring way to say I'm about to come up with what I want this business to do. And you can, like, there's a whiteboard back there. You can go get your sticky notes and do your Gantt charts and your SWOT analysis and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just sit down and say, well, I want it to do this. This is what I want to make. This is where I need to be. You know, I think it's sad, but I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. You know, small businesses, sometimes that's a scary thing because their idea and the thing that they've invested in, it may not be, it's possible it's not viable. You know, that's a possibility. Especially if you don't tend to it and make it viable. You know, so I mean, I think a lot of small business owners and, you know, our clients and customers, you know, may be afraid to hear the answer. You know, is this viable? Is this going to work? What are you going to have to do to make it work? Well, that's impossible. You know, it may be. I don't know. You know, it reminds me of a food truck client that I had recently. They invested all of this. I mean, you know, food truck's pretty expensive. You ever cross one out? Pretty expensive. So, I mean, I remember when I first met with them, I said, well, you know, how many meals do you have to serve per day to break even or to make the profit you want? And they're just looking at me like cross-eyed, like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I mean, don't you think that'd be pretty critical? I like to break things down. I know what I have to do today, tomorrow, over the next 30 days. I know which clients I need to focus on. I know which ones I need to get billed, and I know how much money they're going to pay, and I know what my expenses are. You know, don't you, as a restaurant, don't you think that'd be a pretty good thing to look at? So, you know, we go back to where we're analyzing this industry and operational data. I mean, if you have industry data available, that's great. The chamber may be able to help you with that. You know, what's happening with other restaurants that are doing this? You know, what kind of sales are they getting? How many customers a day are they seeing? You know, what's my market share? You know, how many do I have to have? So, you know, the industry data is great, but, you know, there's nothing better to me than your own operational data. You can sit there and look and see how many customers I see this day, this day, this day. Okay, well, that wasn't enough. How am I going to get it up to this level? How many customers do I need? You know, what price do I need to charge? That's another big one, too. If I go up in my prices, am I going to lose a bunch of people? That's another good question. You've got data in this year that will tell you, that will reveal some of that to you. So, you know, that's another, you know, possibility. What I love to do, and what I've helped a lot of clients with, is actually develop a model that shows, you know, with those inputs, like, okay, I'm going to put a little field here that says this is the number of meals I'm going to serve per day, and then it's going to roll out and show what your cash flow is going to be, what your profit's going to be, and everything else. You can develop it as sophisticated as you want to, or it can be very simple. But if you set and develop a model that actually, where you could go change the number of customers you have per day and instantly see what that bottom line is going to do over the next months, years, whatever, that's what we do, a lot of that kind of stuff, and that's valuable information. You know, so, I mean, you know, you're just strategically laying this out. What do I need to do to make this business work and to get the profit that I want? And, you know, that's, I'm telling you, extremely rare. If you're doing that, you're rare. You're a rare bird, because, you know, a lot of people just shoot from the hip and hope for the best. Hey, now, works out great for some people. You know, I've noticed that. Some people just have that modest touch, you know, where everything they do just turns to gold. That hasn't been my life. And that hasn't been most people, especially a small business entrepreneur. That's a tough life to live. So, but you do something like this and you actually are deliberate and you actually go into it, you understand your data, you know what you need to be looking at. That's a rare bird and one that will be successful. So, you know, that's what I like to do. I like to actually develop a model. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, it could be as simple as knowing I've got to serve this many meals per day and then parking your truck where you can get the most. You go around hey, when I park my truck over here, I got a lot more sales. When I park my truck over here, I got practically nothing, you know? And this applies to all businesses, not just that, not just mine, not just yours. It applies to all businesses. Well, you're in the investment business. I mean, you know, that's a residual income business. I mean, you know, what do you need to, you know, what kind of customer do you need to be focusing on? Where can you know, I mean, every one of them, and I'm sure, you know, financial advisors are usually have a lot of resources, a lot of industry data, a lot of things like that, you know, so I find them to be, you know, pretty on top of it for the most part. But you know, maybe you could help some of your customers with something like that. You've got business customers, right? You do business stuff. So, you know, maybe that would be something that would help. And then they can make more money and send it to you to manage, right? All right. So, you know, you're like going through it and you've got your general strategic plan. Now it's time to evaluate what you got. You gotta look at your employees. Do you have them? Are they working well? Are they sitting back there in the shop, playing on Facebook and chatting? What about pricing? Pricing's a huge question, you know. Are my prices high enough? I discovered recently that my prices for estate and trust were really, really, really far below the industry average. I mean, you know, I wasn't, you know, so, and they're hard. Trusts and estates are hard to do from a tax perspective. So, you know, I need to reevaluate that and see, you know, am I pricing this right? Your customer volumes, I mean, you know, what kind of customers do we have at these different locations? You know, other components, if you're a manufacturer, you know, you know, how long does it take? What's my lead time? You know, if I sell something, how long is it till it's delivered? You know, how many times am I going to be able to roll this inventory over? You know, and you can look at ratios and all kind of stuff. I mean, you know. And then, you know, you're going to go from that and you're just going to look at your benchmarks and your metrics. You know, some people call them key performance indicators. That basically, it means how many customers do I need to serve to make this profit? And you can break that. That's what I love about that stuff, is I can break that down to daily, hourly. I can sit and look at it and watch it and say, I didn't have enough customers this hour. We better turn the lights off. Save some utility money. But you know, you can break those metrics down to something you look at every hour. If you're in the manufacturing business, that's a huge deal. You know, every day, every week, every month, quarterly, whatever. And then you know, you need to like set that up. But budgets, I'm sure you have one at the library. I mean, you know, where are we falling short? What are we, you know, what's going on? You know, why is this expense so much higher than I budgeted? There's something wrong here. I can remember like, those things will sneak up, but those vendors will sneak up on you. You know, somebody's running credit card transactions, and I was looking at the financial statements a couple months later, and I was like, man, your credit card fees are like 5% of your sales. What's going on here? Oh, wait a minute. And they call the credit card merchant, and they're like, oh, well, we can get you on this plan, get you this rate. And you know, they try to sneak up on you. That, you know, when you're a business owner, everybody's got their hand out to you. You know, so, and they'll sneak up on you if you don't watch them. So that's a good way to watch them, because keeping your expenses down means you put more in your pocket. And that's what it's all about. So, you know, I like to look at, you know, what, weekly doesn't really work good for me on cash flow. I like to look at what I know I'm going to need in the next 30 and 60 days. And then I just make sure that I'm doing the work that generates the bills to cover that and give me the profit that I need. You know, everybody's different though. This is just generally speaking, a gross generalization. So but you know, and you can't just plop out a golden egg in December and say, that's it. This is the strategy. This is what my metrics, and that's it. Now I'm going to be successful. You have to monitor that. You have to stay on top of it. You actually have to use the data that you've created. You actually have to look at the issues that have come up, you know, throughout the entire year.
I have a question, but it's not on subject, so I was gonna, it was on another slide, and I didn't want to.
Well, that's it. That's all I've
Okay.
got. Okay, that's all I have. This is my contact information, if everybody can see it. I'm happy to entertain questions or whatever. Just send me an email. I'll be glad to help. Okay.
Yes.